Jerry the King Lawler returns to Memphis. Shane McMahon's got a big announcement tonight. And in the main event, we have Alexa Bliss versus Becky Lynch in a steel cage for the SmackDown Women's Championship. All right, you've got my attention. What's going on, everybody? It's your buddy, it's your pal Spaz Phoenix, the YWC Reality Check, here with your January 17th, 2017 SmackDown Live review. In case you missed it, last week's SmackDown and NXT reviews are a couple of videos back, and you've still got a little bit of time left to get your questions in for the January edition, the inaugural 2017 edition of Ask the Phoenix. Those will be in links at the end of the video. If the links decide to work. Something I've noticed about SmackDown just before we get going, and we know that a couple of writers from NXT moved up to SmackDown when they did the brand split, they are really following the NXT pattern where there's sort of one focus per week. If you watch NXT a lot, you'll notice that there will be an entire week where the real focus is the tag team division. There will be a week where the focus is the women's division, the main event scene. I mean, they don't have a mid-card title, but so it goes and so it goes. Last week, the focus was on the tag team division. I think the week before, there was a lot of talk about the Intercontinental Championship. The week before that, you know, we set the ball rolling for Styles versus Cena at the Royal Rumble, etc. But it really works, and this episode, although a lot of stuff happened in this episode, was really focused around Becky Lynch and Alexa Bliss making history in the main event tonight, being in the first women's cage match in SmackDown history. Now, they did acknowledge, unlike Raw, that it's not the first women's cage match in history. I believe it was Victoria and somebody else that... might have been Victoria and Mickie James, which is ironic if you consider what happened later on Raw that had one, but there's never been a women's cage match on SmackDown. They didn't overstep their bounds. They didn't overboast and eradicate the recent histories of others, much like Raw does. But this was the focus throughout the night. There was a lot of promotion, a lot of repetition from the announcers throughout the night, no matter what else was going on, getting you hyped up for the main event, which was exciting, because this is... I'm not going to lie, and you might laugh, I don't really give a shit. Becky Lynch versus Alexa Bliss is one of my favorite rivalries going on in the company right now. But it was also heavily pumped on Facebook and on Twitter and on the WWE website, obviously, that Shane McMahon was going to kick off the night with a big announcement. He comes in, he's going to hype up the Rumble, he hypes up some of the entrants. As he's listing off the entrants to the Royal Rumble, I momentarily thought that we were going to get Shane McMahon in the Royal Rumble, which... sorry, by all intents and purposes, wouldn't hurt my feelings at all. Look what he did at WrestleMania last year. Look at his participation in the Survivor Series this year, where he almost got decapitated by Roman Reigns. If Shane was entering himself into the Royal Rumble, I wouldn't have minded whatsoever. The commentators play up the fact that it's his birthday, and he gets a louder than usual Shane O'Mac chant from the crowd. But his announcement is indeed that whoever wins at the Royal Rumble between John Cena and AJ Styles, you know, that's the beginning of the journey. The next speed bump on the road to WrestleMania is the Elimination Chamber, where we will, in fact, have a six-man Elimination Chamber match for the WWE World Championship. There's been speculation, you know, if somebody from SmackDown wins the Royal Rumble, what's the need to have an Elimination Chamber match? Styles comes out, he protests the Chamber match, he says he's going to do what he does best at the Royal Rumble and beat up John Cena. You know, you can't be putting me in an Elimination Chamber match. And Shane, just being typical cocky Shane McMahon, says, well, you might not have to worry about it, because by the time we get to Elimination Chamber, somebody else might be the 16-time record-tying World Heavyweight Champion. He starts doing a little bit of a Ric Flair strut, gets a lot of loud woos from the crowd. We want to give chances to the best in WWE, but AJ Styles, I will give you credit. You are one of the best in the company. Cena comes out. There's loud, let's go Cena, let's go Styles chants, which is, you know, par for the course. Styles goes on to his big diatribe about how there's a conspiracy, you know, who else can you get to defend me, rah, rah, rah. And then... sorry guys, still feeling like shit. My boy The Miz comes out, and my boy The Miz comes out showing that he is a better heel than AJ Styles. Now notice I said heel. He's not a better wrestler than AJ Styles. That's asinine. AJ Styles is one of the best wrestlers in the company, but people love AJ Styles. AJ Styles doesn't get booed. The Miz gets booed because he's a good heel. He says, AJ, I'm here to steal your spotlight. I'm here to tell Shane McMahon he needs to put me in the chamber. One way or another, I'm going to main event WrestleMania, whether it's in the Elimination Chamber or by winning the Royal Rumble. We all know that I'm going to get another shot at Dean Ambrose. I'm going to be the Intercontinental Champion. I'm going to be SmackDown Live's double champion. I beat John Cena long before you did. At WrestleMania, I was beating up John Cena before beating up John Cena was cool. And look at just last year alone, where I saved the Intercontinental Championship and made it relevant once again. Styles reminds him that last time they fought was here in Memphis, and last time he fought, we broke out your teeth. Which is good, because he did the back fist, and he actually did chip The Miz's teeth. The Miz had to get the veneers and all that shit, and there was lots of funny pictures put up all over WWE.com about it. And then he asks Maurice if The Miz still performs with a limp, which is awesome, and very, very redneck of AJ Styles to ask something like that to Maurice, who's there in the corner thinking she's the hottest shit ever, which she very well could be. Shane McMahon takes advantage of all this while John Cena's pumping up both sides of this argument, you know, stirring the pot between The Miz and AJ Styles. Shane McMahon makes a match between The Miz and AJ Styles right stat now. And that is our first match of the night. We go to the back where Ambrose stops Shane in the back and says he wants to take out the Wyatt family. Specifically, he wants a match with Randy Orton tonight. Shane says, you know what? Go for it. Good luck. Have fun. Styles versus The Miz with Cena on commentary. Cena on commentary is funny, if nothing else. Collar and elbow tie up, and Miz works the arm. Styles reverses a hammerlock by Styles, and they hit a test of strength. Kitchen sink and a side headlock by The Miz. Takedown by Styles. Mud hole and a backbreaker by AJ Styles. Kitchen sink by The Miz again. Forearm and a boot by AJ Styles. Maurice distracts Styles, and Miz boots him out of the ring as we go to commercial break. Surfboard by The Miz as we come back from commercial break. Corner chops by Styles. Corner drop kicks by The Miz, and a perched clothesline. I love the perched clothesline because he hits the clothesline, his opponent falls, and he's still there with the cocky Miz smile, which is fucking great. DDT by The Miz, pinning reversal sequence, Pele kick by Styles and a high knee. Styles throws The Miz into John Cena. John Cena throws The Miz into the barricade, causing the disqualification. The match is tossed out. He chases AJ Styles. The Miz chases him. Miz eats an attitude adjustment. AJ Styles tries for a cheap shot of sorts with the phenomenal forearm. He eats an AA for his troubles. John Cena stands tall, which a couple years ago would have driven me nuts, but with slightly cocky, slightly heel, part-time John Cena being as awesome as SmackDown has made him look, doesn't hurt my feelings in the slightest, doesn't hurt AJ Styles, and I love seeing my boy The Miz back in the world title picture. What I don't like is the Nikki versus Natty feud. Nikki comes out to call out Natty to the ring again after the beatdown last week. Natty's in the merch stand talking about how Nikki gets so much merch because she's dating John Cena. Roddy rah. How come I don't have any merch? They brawl in the back. I raised a mild smirk when they were brawling by the merchandise table, and I don't even think it was intentional, but Nikki put Natty through the merch table, which is great. Bliss in the back cuts a great heel promo pertaining to her cage match later on tonight with Becky Lynch, which is all good. We get a repeat of the announcement from Raw. One of the few good things to come out of Raw. I mean, there's two big things that were acknowledged on Raw. One was the passing of Superfly Jimmy Snuka, R.I.P. and all that. All of his controversies aside, you know, it sucks that we're just adding to the list of legends that, you know, some of us grew up with that are no longer with us. And I'm not going to get into the controversies of what he may or may not have done 20 years ago. The wrestling world lost a great wrestler. That's all I'm going to say about that. Speaking of great wrestlers, Kurt Angle is the headliner for the 2017 Hall of Fame. You can't really argue with this, guys. You really can't. Go back in his short tenure in WWE, you got his matches with Benoit, even though we can't talk about Benoit. You got his matches with Eddie Guerrero. You got his matches with John Cena. You got his matches with The Rock and Austin, and the one great WrestleMania match that he had with Brock Lesnar until Brock Lesnar tried to do a shooting star press, and wasn't that just unfortunate? But Kurt Angle going into the Hall of Fame, I hope we get one more match out of him. I really do. Even if it's one match, one token match at WrestleMania to say that, yeah, I'm back, the same weekend that he goes into the Hall of Fame, I hope we get one more match. I hope his last match is in WWE. I know he said for years and years and years the reason he wasn't coming back to WWE was that he wanted the last match of his career to be called by Jim Ross. I'm pretty sure we can do that. they brought in Joey Styles for one night at one WrestleMania to call the Extreme Rules match between Edge and Mick Foley. I think if it's a personal request from Kurt Angle as he goes into the Hall of Fame, you can stand to have Jim Ross come in and guest commentate for one match. Swallow your pride. Get the guy in there for one match. It could be fucking great. Ambrose versus Orton. I will say, this wasn't a bad match, but I don't think I don't want to say the charisma, I don't think I can't think of a better term. I'm sorry. Drawing a blank. I don't think the connectivity is there between these two guys as two guys to have a match. But it was alright. Quick roll up by Orton to start. Chops by Ambrose. Crossbody and mounted punches by Ambrose. Test of strength and an armbar by Ambrose. Side headlock by Ambrose. It's reversed by Orton. Tackle by Orton. A toe hold and a crossface by Ambrose. Orton hangs Ambrose by the gut over the top ropes, follows it up with the Orton stomp, and rides a sleeper before they get back to trading punches. A boot and a standing elbow drop by Ambrose. 619 clothesline on the outside by Ambrose. Ambrose eats the post. Ambrose eats the commentator table. Ambrose gets slammed on the commentator table. Orton rides a headlock for a long time because he's a bad guy. Clothesline by Ambrose. Back elbows by Ambrose. Neckbreaker, and they trade some more punches. Power slam by Orton. They trade finishing attempts, and then Ambrose goes for a suicide dive that misses Orton and hits Harper. But Orton uses the distraction to get him back in the ring, sets him up for the suspension DDT, which he hits, unlike last week. But Harper wants to get into the ring to, respond to the suicide dive by Ambrose. There's a little bit more infighting. Harper fights with Orton. Orton is the victim of a quick roll-up, and Ambrose wins. The Wyatts have another breakdown. Again, Harper and Orton want to get at each other again. Wyatt gets between them again, but this time, Wyatt decides to smack some sense into Harper. Harper leaves the ring, leaving Wyatt and Orton in the ring relatively neutral, not hostile to each other, but, sort of giving him the death glare up the ramp. And it made me think of something, which is really odd. I mean, you guys have seen, on the odd occasion, myself, Kristen Guapo, will break out of the wrestling realm and do some movie reviews. We've reviewed a lot of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, and it made me think of Civil War a little bit, with Randy Orton playing the part of Baron Zemo. He couldn't fight them head on. He couldn't fight Captain America and Iron Man head on. So what did he do? He wove his way in to get them mad at each other to destroy them from the inside, and it's very parallel with what it looks like Randy Orton's doing to Harper and Wyatt in the Wyatt family. He doesn't have to do anything to either of them. He buddies up to Wyatt, makes Harper kind of look like the one that's damaging the group, and if they boil this over to the point where Wyatt and Harper destroy each other, and Orton just walks away with the I almost want to say a Triple H, like a cerebral assassin grin on his face, that will be fucking killer. I hope they go that way. I don't know if that's what they're going to do. And how's that for a very random reference? Me comparing the WWE to Marvel Comics. Becky Lynch in the back cutting what is basically a generic cookie-cutter babyface promo about her cage match tonight. I say cookie cutter and I say cookie cutter babyface promo from Becky Lynch. Doesn't mean I don't like Becky Lynch's promos. There's something unique about her. I mean, the first and foremost thing about her promos is she's got the big, thick Irish accent, and she's got some attitude that comes with it. So it makes what would be normally considered a very John Cena-ish promo a little bit more palatable to the audience. Maybe that's just me. You guys can let me know in the comment section below. The King's Court with Lawler. Now, when I read about this, because they preview SmackDown on WWE.com, so I figured I'd pop it up before the show started. What are we in store for tonight? We know we've got the cage match. We know we're getting this announcement from Shane McMahon, which ended up being the Elimination Chamber. But what the fuck is this King's Court stuff? They're just going to pull out some corny bullshit. And then I saw that they were in Memphis. I'm like, okay, this could be a compromise between the WWE and its fans, because we're sick of the how do you want to say, the talk show segments. We're sick of the highlight reels. We're sick of the Kevin Owens shows. We're sick of the Rollins Report and the Miz TV and all that sort of thing, because they're all basically the same. But more importantly to the point is, you take somebody and throw them in a hosting role that should be wrestling. Miz shouldn't be hosting a talk show. He should be trying to get his Intercontinental title back. Jericho shouldn't be hosting a talk show. He should be defending his brand new U.S. title. So-and-so, that we want to be champion should be pursuing that championship, etc. Not playing host and trying to build up other people's storylines. Now, you eliminate that complaint when you get somebody like Jerry Lawler, who's a character, but not a character who's actively wrestling anymore, and you make it a little bit more exciting than a typical standalone microphone promo. in the middle of the ring with somebody like a Mauro Ranallo or a Michael Cole, who are good in their role, but they're not exciting interviewers. So I think having Jerry Lawler, especially with it being in Memphis, so he kind of gets a pass anyway, I think you get a free pass with, it's not quite as boring as a regular interviewer, but we're not taking away a wrestler that could be, you know, wrestling, going for a title, etc. But with it being the King and with it being Memphis, I expected it to be a little campy. He was going to come out with the robe, and he was going to be there in his ring gear for some unfortunate known reason. He was going to have the crown on, and they did. They had the big throne for him, and they had the other chair for the guest, which basically looked like a spray-painted lawn chair. And there was going to be a little bit of campiness to it, but it was sort of a middle ground. It was going to be a little corny. It was going to eat 5 minutes. It was going to get Lawler cheered by his hometown crowd, and that was going to be it. But they went in a very, very different direction from what I thought, because his guest was Dolph Ziggler, who's not only going on this heel thing, he's not really explaining himself very well, and he's not saying very much, which for somebody vocal like a Dolph Ziggler is not the typical thing. And somebody put on Twitter, I think it was my friends over at CB Over the Ropes, that said it's very much like the Jarrett trolling thing. But the Jarrett trolling thing was just to piss people off. The silent let my actions speak louder than my words version of Dolph Ziggler is much more serious than that. But I thought it was played out great. King came out there, and he tried to play up the whole, hey man, I've been here a long time, you've been here a long time, I've known you a long time, you've always been a stand-up guy, you've always been a guy that stood up for sort of the right thing, which isn't always the case, because, I mean, he was in storyline banging Vicky Guerrero at one point, but that's neither here nor there. He tries the best he can to say, look, you know, I know you're frustrated. I know you're acting out based on this frustration. You think this new change in attitude is going to bring you some wins, but it didn't. Let me show you the footage from last week where you couldn't get it done against Kalisto, and then you doubled down and beat up two guys that didn't deserve it with steel chairs, etc. And Ziggler goes to leave, and he says, man, you know, I could get a better interview out of an oil painting. Are you going to say anything at all? Ziggler cuts him off. And he says, you have to stop this. I wasn't even going to come out here. I know you brought me out here just to embarrass me, and I know why you brought me out here just to embarrass me. And he shows some footage. Shows some footage from a couple of years ago up here in Canada, over about a province over from me in Montreal, where he had a match with the King, and he dropped 10 elbow drops on him in a row. And as most of you know, later on that night was when Jerry Lawler in Montreal suffered his on-air heart attack. And the whole tone just changed. Like, you couldn't really get a fix on how Ziggler was talking. He was talking very slow. He looked like he was almost sad. Like, you know, don't meet your heroes in real life, they'll always disappoint you. Like, he was talking down to somebody who legend-wise is above him, and it was very, very erratic sounding, but at the same time very, very calm. And he says, you know, I think this show is over. I think you need to stop asking me all these questions before I finish what I started that night in Montreal. And Lawler says, well, I'm sorry, I'm not going to change, and no amount of elbows you drop on me and no attitude change you try to portray is going to change the fact that you are a loser. And Ziggler pretends to leave, turns around, and super kicks Jerry Lawler. But here's the point, and here's where the story stays right on the tick, is he doesn't super kick him in the face. He super kicks him square in the chest. Square in the chest, right after saying, I'm going to finish what I started in Montreal. So low-key, Ziggler turned heel by threatening to literally kill an old man. And it's kind of awkward and kind of uncomfortable, which makes it fucking amazing. King drags himself back to his feet to the applause of his hometown crowd, screaming out of the ring, Ziggler, you know, get your ass back here and, you know, see if you can follow up on that and all that sort of thing. Ziggler walks away because he's already done his dastardly deed. The venom is at the end of his boot, and or whatever metaphor you want to throw out there. But it was really, it went to a dark, like, it wasn't super dastardly, it wasn't Attitude Era-esque, and it wasn't totally vile, but it was enough that it wasn't quite PG, and it was enough to say, okay, they just went to a weird place, and I'd like to see where they go with that next. Bray Wyatt shows up on the Titantron with the jump scare type thing with the smoke and all that, but he's speaking by himself. Not only does he announce that he and his brothers will all be in the Royal Rumble, he announces that he's going to solve the inner turmoil in his family next week when his brothers, Randy Orton and Luke Harper, face each other. One will stand, one will fall, and we will all be a stronger family for it going into the Royal Rumble, which is all good. So, again, it leaves us to building towards next week, which SmackDown's good at, and Raw's not, and even NXT is good at, even though they have a pre-taped show. Just putting that one out there. Main event time. Becky Lynch versus Alexa Bliss for the SmackDown Women's Championship in a steel cage match in the main event of SmackDown. I say it, and it doesn't make me popular, but it's true. These two put the main feud of Raw all last year to complete fucking shame. Complete fucking shame. From Becky Lynch establishing the title, to Alexa Bliss being the #1 contender, to missing their first pay-per-view title opportunity because of Becky Lynch's injury, to their rematch in Scotland, to their match at TLC, to their match at the end of the year, to tonight. These women put the Raw women to shame. And yes, I know you can't say anything bad about Sasha Banks because everybody loves her and she's Snoop Dogg's cousin and rah-rah-rah-rah. Yeah, she's good. She's really, really good. I like Sasha Banks. You can't say anything bad about Charlotte because friggin' Ric Flair's gonna get all angry and flap his man titties at you. I get it, whatever. But these women are better. I'm just saying. They were overlooked in NXT. They were overlooked in the Divas Revolution. They were overlooked when they had the overhaul from the Divas division to women's wrestling. And now they are showing why they never should have been overlooked. Oh yes. Back elbow by Bliss to start both eat the fence post in the early going. Bliss eats the turnbuckle, elbow and a foot by Bliss, STO by Bliss, rolling arm drags and a drop kick by Becky Lynch, snake eyes by Bliss. They trade blows while they both try to climb the cage, while facebuster on the turnbuckle by Becky Lynch. They're both standing on the top rope. Becky Lynch grabs her by the face, brings her down, but not all the way to the ring floor, brings her down face first across the top turnbuckle. Really, really nasty looking spot because the way they fell, it almost looked like she missed the turnbuckle pad and actually hit the bolt, which would have broken her face, clearly. Coming back from the commercial break, mudhole stomps by Bliss mudhole by Bliss. Lynch eats the fence. I can speak, I swear. Bliss spears the fence wall, attempting to spear Lynch. Drop kick by Lynch. They trade punches on the top rope once again, and there's a second rope exploder by Becky Lynch, but she tries to leave the cage, and La Luchadora blocks the door. Instead, she goes back into the ring, locks on the disarmer on Alexa Bliss. You think that's the end of the match. La Luchadora comes in, hits her with a spin kick, quick DDT by Alexa Bliss. Bliss wins and retains the SmackDown Women's Championship in the cage, and then there's a 2-on-1 beatdown. There's a brief fight back from Becky Lynch, who pulls off La Luchadora's mask, and if it isn't Mickie fucking James on SmackDown, thank God. As I said, anybody that comes back or anybody that comes up from NXT, we hope they all end up on SmackDown. Unfortunately, they can't at all end up on SmackDown, but Mickie James has made her heel return to SmackDown, and she is in allegiance with Becky Lynch, with Alexa Bliss. If Alexa Bliss wasn't crazy and evil enough, now you've got crazy heel Mickie James thrown into the mix. Now, I don't know whether this means there's going to be a program between Mickie James and Becky Lynch, and Alexa Bliss is going to go defend against somebody else. I'm thinking Nikki Bella, because we need to get Nikki Bella out of that Natalya bullshit. I will say, SmackDown has done me another favor in keeping the cancer known as Naomi off my television screen, but they've replaced it with a really, really shitty version of Natalya, which is unfortunate, because I should be able to root for Natalya like a hometown girl because she is from Canada, Hart family and all that sort of thing, which I do respect, but they made her the crazy cat lady. They couldn't decide whether she was face or heel, and now she's tearing up merchandise stands, and that's her way of getting heel heat, and it's just terrible. But the title scene is great. Your tag team champions are still American Alpha, followed closely on the heels by, I believe, whatever's left of the Wyatt family. You've got Dean Ambrose, who right now still has the Intercontinental Championship. He's probably going to give it back to The Miz so that things can be as they should be. The main event title feud is AJ Styles versus a John Cena that I give a fuck about. Ask me why I love Tuesdays. Anyways, like I said, you're going to see a link up in the corner in a couple seconds to the Q&A. There's a couple more days to get your questions in for that. But until then, I've been Spaz, your YWC Reality Check. Subscribe up there. Talk down there. Start a conversation. Keep all these conversations going. Don't be a stranger. I'll talk to each and every last one of you later. But for right now, I am tagging out. Bye, guys.
Freak like me.